So hello and welcome to the Sensitivity Doctors. We had such a cool guest today, and I had so much fun because we both really needed this session.
Definitely. Yes, Marni is wonderful. I met her on her podcast before, and she is just such a force of honesty. She's so down to earth, and she has such a passion for helping women often, but really anyone, find a new way to live their life that is courageous.
Yeah.
But the thing that really resonated for me today, I don't know about you, is that I have been feeling a bit burnt out lately. I've been saying yes to almost too many things.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like her advice today gave me permission to unshould myself as we're going to explore and really ask myself, why am I saying yes and doing things that I might be feeling resentful about sometimes?
Yeah, for sure. It was really a great episode, and I also had many questions about how I should unshould my life. So, a really cool episode. We can't wait for you to listen. You're gonna love Marni Battista coming up. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Sensitivity Doctors podcast. Here we explore everything from overcoming anxiety to living in a world not always designed for our sensitive wiring. Whether it's navigating business, parenthood, overcoming trauma, or getting what you want out of your relationships, we invite you to this empowering journey of self-compassion and growth. Sit back, relax, and here are your hosts. So, hi, Marni. It's so nice to have you here on the Sensitivity Doctors. I think Amelia was just telling us that she really needs this episode. This is the time for this episode.
I feel like we all, as women on the planet, need this conversation.
Need this episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
I really loved when you sent us your ideas of what we could talk about today and referring to the should life. I like the way that you put that. And that's what we're really going to be talking about today is how to move out of that space of being in the should life to, as you would say, almost in a space where you feel like you're on constant vacation. And how do we do that? So I first wanted to ask you about this term, the should life. How did you come up with that, and what led you into getting that terminology down?
Well, I know in my own story, I look back and think about all the things I did because I thought that's what you should do. Right?
Yeah.
Like my mom went to college to get her MRS degree, right? Back in the 60s.
Yeah.
I love that I had to think for a second
Yeah,
about
well,
that.
I'm still thinking about it. What is an MRS
right?
degree?
To become a Mrs., right? MRS.
Okay,
Right?
yeah. Definitely need this
it was
episode
like
today.
this is yeah, right. But like that's what that is like there's our culture is always telling us what you should and shouldn't do. And it changes and evolves. But when we are sort of raised and create a life by other people telling us what it should look like, what success looks like, we end up building what I call like the rules of the world. So did any of you guys watch like Bridgerton or read any really?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my
Well,
God,
everybody.
yes.
So right.
I blame Bridgerton for my 2-week span of insomnia.
Right. But like the first time you watch it, you're like, wait, what? Where am I? Like, there's diversity. Is this real? Is it? And then very quickly it's established these are the rules in this world. We know what the Ton is, we know the Queen, we know like that it's diverse, and we just go, oh, these are the rules of the world. This is how it works in Mayfair. Right. And so for all of us, we have rules of our worlds. And we believe that this is the way it is for everybody, which is why when someone does something different or doesn't understand us, we're like, how, like what? Like, doesn't everyone think like me? So our should life is the rules of the world that we have created by osmosis, by our choices, by our experiences. They get redefined. I think it's exacerbated with social media. And then we're like, oh,
Mhm.
well, I did all those things I was supposed to do. And I wake up at a certain time in my life and I'm like, wait, I'm literally not happy or fulfilled. Like I followed the
Yeah.
rules. I was a good girl.
Mm.
Um, but then you're
Mhm.
like, well, then I don't know what else to do. And also, by the way, I'm terrified because this world that I built has given me all my safety and security.
Mm.
So we kind of
Mhm.
like love to hate the should life.
Yeah. And I think that really leads into your first point where you were saying how do we explore how this happens? And I think that was a really good explanation of how we get there. And talking about
Mhm.
professional women waking up one day realizing, okay, this should life is not the life that I wanted. Um, what in your experience leads to that aha moment most of the time? Because I feel like a lot of us are on that hamster wheel for a long time and we keep going past go and going past go and we don't realize it. But obviously, somewhere it stops and we realize, whoa, I need to take a step back. What in your experience has been those moments that make the light bulb go
Well,
on?
I think for a lot of women that I talk to, when we're in our like 20s and 30s and maybe even early 40s, we have a lot more stamina. We aren't as confident, so we're like following. We're just doing what we're told. We're
Mhm.
just getting shit done, right? And then
Hmm.
Mhm.
we wake up one day and we're like, I'm tired. And we look
Mhm.
ahead and we're like, okay, well, I can't retire. I'm not going to retire. I don't want to retire. Um, I don't think I can do it anymore. Like,
Mm.
and for a lot of
Mm.
people, there's a loss, there's a milestone birthday, there's a transition, like there's an empty nest, there's a divorce, there's both parents dying. There's something that happens that makes us go, um, I don't have as many birthdays ahead as I have behind.
Mm.
Things
Mm.
can't be taken for granted anymore. But the thing is, a lot of women have the wake
Mhm.
up call, but they don't know what
Mhm.
to do differently.
Mhm.
They don't know how to do it differently. And so they default back into the treadmill and the busyness, waiting for one day.
I have to say, I am resonating so strong with this today, um, because I just got off of a 2 week, we'll call it a vacation, seeing family up north. But it did pull me out of my normal hamster wheel that I'm on. And I've recognized that in my effort to do the big things I've dreamed of, like publish books and do podcasts and, reach the world, so to speak, I've gotten into a yes cycle. And I have good boundaries, I think, with like, friendships and relationships, but there's been something about my professional ideas and endeavors that I'm just yesing everything. And I've realized over the last 2 weeks that I need to be much more selective about my yeses and to know that I don't need to say yes to every interview or every article or every single thing. And it's okay to be much more choosy and that there's not going to be dead air if I say no. Like if I say no to something, all the opportunities aren't just going to evaporate and leave. I might actually be leaving room for better ones. I wonder if this is something you see a lot of high achievers struggle with. I don't want to label myself as such, but people who actually, I will say, highly sensitive people and neurodiverse people, which we talk to a lot in this podcast. Us HSPs tend to be very passionate and have all these ideas and things that move us. So it's hard to decide what moves me enough to say yes to and what should I be saying no to. I am so curious your thoughts on this.
Well, I think we get on autopilot,
Mhm.
right? Because so in the rule of your world, the more you do, the more something, the more people you can help, the more money you'll make, the more visibility, right? We just go,
Right.
oh, right. Like, and we don't question our assumptions about how we've set up our life and our business and our
Mhm.
home and our
Mhm.
Mm.
schedule because we're so on autopilot and we believe that this is the rules of the world. I worked with a client once who was a solopreneur, about her schedule,
Wait, a
helping her.
what? A
A
solar
solopreneur.
So someone who's an entrepreneur, but they have no employees? Is
Yeah.
that
Yeah, just like she
okay?
just does her own. She does her own business, right? Um, and she was like, I hate my schedule. Right. Like
Mm,
she sees patients, clients like 8 o'clock. And then she was like, well, I have to because, they work and the time zones. And she was like, but my God, between 5 and 8 p.m., I like hate my job.
hmm,
And I was like, well, why are you doing that? She's like, well, I have to. I was like, why do you have to? Well, otherwise they won't want to work with me. And I was like, oh, whoa. Let's like just start questioning a lot of assumptions here. Number one,
mm,
like my schedule is less important than your schedule. Number two, they don't love me enough that they'll actually make an adjustment in their schedule to work with me. Right.
good
And she
point.
was all these questions and she was like, can I do that? And I was
Mm.
like, you could do an experiment and try it.
Mm.
Mhm.
And you know what? She did. And everyone was like, okay, great. No problem. I could talk to you in lunch. I could talk to you here. I could talk. And then all of a sudden she's got energy in her day. And she used to wake up on those days and be like, oh God, it's the 5 to 8 day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Right. And so we have to question everything we're saying yes to, everything we're doing, and really saying, am I doing it because I have to? Am I doing this because I want to? Is this really on my terms? Like, how could I
yeah.
shift it? And so it's about being relentless and questioning your assumptions because the
Mhm.
shoulds are so baked in.
Yeah. And
Mm,
I'm wondering, this is one of the times where I will be grateful for my anxiety disorder because I think it has brought some goodness to it as well. And one of those things is exactly what you're talking about right now, is I don't have the luxury to push too far on my limitations because then
mhm,
I'm nowhere for anywhere between a week and a month. Like I'm having panic attacks, I have the panic hangover. Like then I'm really,
mm,
really useless. Okay.
Really out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've had to learn to be very strict with myself on that. And the thing that really shifted my focus on that was, this aha moment when I was sitting outside one day and I thought to myself, well, you know what? If I just allowed myself that afternoon to take off that afternoon when I was feeling ill, I would have had that afternoon and I would have been back in it the next day. I would have been re energized, but I didn't. I kept going and going and going. I reached my breaking point, and now I'm struggling for 2 weeks instead of one afternoon. Um,
mhm.
but I recognize not everybody is exactly in that same boat. But I do think to a lesser degree that starts happening to all of us because we all have limitations. We all have that kind of line in the sand that our intuition maybe gives us and says, okay, this is too far for you. You need to take a day off or relax or
Mhm.
reevaluate what you're saying yes to or how you want to structure your dreams and how they look before you in the path.
So I suck at golf, but I love it. So anyway, and so I was really getting this understanding that if I go slower, I don't need to use force to hit the ball. Okay. So I was like, oh, kind of getting the hang of it. So then I've never played in a golf course before. This is my first time. I've just done the driving range. So I get to this spot in the golf course and there's like, I don't even know the right term. So golf ladies and men, sorry. But yeah, exactly. There were weeds, the rough. There was like a body of water, whatever, and you have to hit it over this thing to get to the green. Well, so my husband is being very patient and amazing, and he's like, let's just drop a ball over there. And I was like, I can do it. Let me try. And so anyway, I decided that it's a long distance. I need to use a lot of force, and so I swung the club, and I literally tried to hit it so hard that I wrenched a muscle in
Oh,
Oh,
my
no.
side, and I like spun around like a silly person. And then I heard, like pulled a muscle like from swinging so hard,
Yikes.
and I just was like, universe, you really like to tell me this
There
over
you
and over
are.
again, right?
Mhm.
Like he was like, and then I talked to someone who's a golf teacher, and he was like, you don't like, you hit the golf ball far, not by swinging harder. And that's what we do in our life. We're
Yeah.
like, if I swing harder, I'll go farther, and we can hurt ourselves, we
Yeah.
can overdo it, right? And so it's like slow and steady gets the race.
Yeah.
And we're just never taught that. That's not reinforced. Like, we're just like, how we're given like kudos and cookies for like doing more, like there's like a badge of honor for saying like, oh, I was buried today, I'm slammed, I'm back to back, like we're gonna go, yeah, you're fucking great, but that's how we talk to each other, right? Like that's just that's just
Yeah.
the language, and we get rewarded for it, which it's not really
I
rewarding.
am dying to ask you a way to translate your metaphor of golf. I love that because I've always had this internal dialogue. I think it's my should that if I get something done and I get everything done as quick as possible, there'll be nothing to do. And then suddenly then I'll have rest. And I think part of that is driven also by neurodiversity, where I have an ultra masking behavior where if I don't do something right in the moment, I'm going to forget it. So then it just gets
Mm-hmm.
really piled on. So my question for you is, how do you take the gentleness approach, the slower kind of the tortoise and the hare mentality for people who do have a lot on their plate and maybe also are dealing with the fear of forgetting things or overlooking things? Like, how do you navigate that?
I love this question. So I think there's a logistics
Mhm.
answer, and then there's like an internal deeper
Teach me.
answer. So I will. So I think the deeper answer is for a lot of people who have a lot of things on their plate, they they are doing a lot of those things because of the
Mhm.
shoulds. Um, they are needing to be in control and maybe afraid to delegate, afraid to ask for help, afraid to pay someone to do something because it costs $20. Right. And so we have this list. And when I work with clients and I go through it, I was like, can we delegate
Mm.
that? Do you need to do that? Does it need to be done perfectly?
Mhm.
So anybody watch The Crown? If you like Bridgerton, do you like The
I
Crown?
tried, I
Yeah.
couldn't get into it.
Well,
There's
so
not
I don't know
enough,
if this is
romance,
true.
I guess.
Yeah, no, it's kind of dry. She's kind of dry. But one of the things, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I wrote this down because I thought it was so powerful. So the queen is talking about like how they deal with crisis or things that need to be done. And she says in her amazing accent, when we look at these things, we ask ourselves, do I need to do it? Does it need to be done now? Does it need to be done
At all?
at all?
Oh. Hmm.
Do I need to do it? Does it need to be done now? Does it need to be done at all? Like, does it even need to be
Oh
done?
my gosh, I love that.
I was like, thank you, queen, literally. And so when you're looking at your list, like I would ask yourself these questions. Do I need to do it? Does it need to be done right now?
Mhm.
Like there's the joke about like, is it okay to leave a cup in the sink until tomorrow? Like, do I need to make sure that like everything is perfect before I go to bed every single night? And then do I even need to do this at all? And so when I work with clients, and some of them are moms, and
Mhm.
uh, I had a client who was like, I have to volunteer to sew the costumes for my kids' theater group because I do it better than anyone else.
Mm.
Um, like she thinks that I care about her if I do it.
Mm.
I had her question all those assumptions, and she even told her daughter, "You can't do the next play because I can't do it."
Mm.
And I was like, okay, wait, last I checked, you weren't 16 and going out for theater. I think you're just the mom,
Right,
Mm.
you know?
right.
And I was like, can you give someone else a chance to do the costumes? Well, they won't be as good. I'm like, so what?
Yeah, good
Yeah.
point.
Right. So that's what, so there's a lot of not asking for help, not delegating, believing that it's a reflection of us, that what we do, it has to be done is perfect. So there's so many issues, right? And then there's logistics, which
Mhm.
is really amazing, which is looking at how do you work best.
Mm.
Sorry, can I first ask you a question, a follow up question on the delegation part, right?
Yes.
What about our listeners that are in the situation where I'm many times in as being a single parent? I live in a, I'm from South Africa, but we live in Portugal. We have no family here, we have no support structure. The friends that we do have work longer hours than us because the Portuguese just work until 9 at night. It's the way they do things. So when hubby is gone for extended periods of time, I'm alone with my daughter, and there is literally nobody to delegate to. And those
Mhm.
are also the times when I get most overwhelmed. What do we say to those listeners who have those challenges, and how do we kind of
Yeah.
navigate through that?
That's such a great question. So this is when we look at everything as there's a season, right? There's
Mm.
Mhm.
seasons where like your husband's gone and you might have to do all those things, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So when you're creating what I call your success formula, right, which is like, well, then based on um how you really are expressing yourself in your soul at the soul level in all those tasks, how can you make them more like that? How can you have more self-compassion? How can you rest more? How can you also just have the understanding that this isn't permanent?
Mm.
um
Mhm.
there's so many different things, right? Like, so how old's your daughter?
6.
I love
And
that.
our
Okay,
daughters are now
so
international
Yeah.
pen pals. It's so
Yeah.
cute.
That's so cool. So one thing you might understand, so one reframe, and I'm a fan of reframing when we can, because sometimes it's the best we can do,
Mhm.
is understanding. So my kids are like 29, 26, and 22.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so I would say to you, wow, how amazing that you get to really be present for this like bonding time with your daughter,
Mhm.
where
Yeah.
it's just you and hubby. And you know what? Maybe the days don't look like they do in the regular routine. And
Mhm.
maybe you're a little tired,
Mm.
and maybe you don't do everything exactly perfect. And maybe her lunch isn't quite as healthy or whatever it is.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
like, you are getting this time that you can never get back to be with your daughter. Right. And so we go, this is not my whole life.
Mm.
Yeah.
This is like, okay, so are there any modifications I can do? So you can still ask, do I need to do it? Do I need to do it now? Does it need to be done at all?
Mm.
And in those times where we feel overflowing and lack of time or resources, then what can we do to source ourselves, to change how we're doing things, to give
Mhm.
ourselves some self-compassion? Because
Mhm.
we can't do it forever, but sometimes, because we're badasses, we can do it for shorter periods of time. So we just give ourselves the grace to do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Mm.
awesome. Thank
I
you so
love
much.
that. As I'm listening
Yeah,
to you,
for sure.
I'm realizing there are certain times where the shoulds are louder and not so much. I'm so confused with my own inner dichotomy where sometimes I'm like, imperfection's great, whatever. I'll delegate, I'll pay for things. However, when you talked about the cup in the sink, I felt
Mhm.
so exposed because because I'm very weird about my environment. I don't know if it's a highly sensitive thing. I don't know if it's generational trauma. I don't know, but it's like I can't let go of the dishes in the sink overnight, yet I can let go of making major mistakes in other areas. So it's
Mm.
how would you suggest someone take from the areas that they're good at not shoulding and translate it? 'Cause I had said to your the woman that you work with when we were communicating about our
Yeah,
episode, I loved this episode because I say to my clients, stop shoulding yourself.
right.
And so is there I don't know, is there something I'll ask for you personally. What do you do for yourself, Marnie, when you notice I'm more likely to should myself in this area and not in this area? Like, how do you borrow from that?
Yeah, well, I think so. One of the things that I'm a fan of is an experiment lifestyle,
Okay.
which means that nothing is permanent and everything is an experiment.
I
Mm.
love that.
So I'm very environmentally aware.
Mhm.
And so a great experiment you could do is well, I know you know that there's some things that you easily let go of a should. So are you willing to be curious about this other area like the cups in the sink?
Mhm.
Mm.
Like, is there something, say that again?
Am I willing to be curious around my tolerance for stuff in the sink?
Mm.
Am I willing to do an
Mm.
experiment? Because I already know that I can let things go. I have
Yeah.
that in
Mm.
me. I've done it. There's examples of it.
Okay.
Mm.
So here's what we do, I think. We're black and white thinkers and we're
Mm.
all or nothing. And we're like, oh shit, she said about the cups in the sink. That means I should just leave like the fucking whole nights of dishes in there and, screw
Get
the
rid of the dish
shoulds.
detergent.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let it soak, baby. And so instead of that, be like, okay, well, what happens if I load the dishwasher and do the dishes? But like I'm going to do an experiment for like 7 days. And
Okay.
anything that I use after 8 p.m., I'm leaving it in the sink. I'm going to rinse it out. I'm just going to see, can I live with it?
Hmm.
When I wake up in the morning, how do I feel?
Yeah.
Did I get that extra 10 minutes of sleep? Did it feel kind of good to just
Right.
like not? And for a lot of us, myself included,
Mhm.
sometimes I do it. I have a little martyr energy.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm like, I work so hard. You went to bed, husband, but I'm going to put, because that's what I do. And I'm
Mm.
like, ew, that's gross. Am I doing it for me? Am I doing it to make a statement? Am I, like, why am I even really doing it?
Mhm.
And
Mm.
after 7 days, you make an assessment. You're like,
Mhm.
you know what? The extra 5 minutes, I want to keep doing it. Or, you know what? This was great. Like in
Mhm.
the end, and maybe my husband got up before me and then he put the dishes in the dishwasher,
Oh
like
my
Right.
whatever.
gosh. I'm so guilty. I'm thinking literally of an example 2 weeks ago. I had been traveling a lot. It was really brutal. And unfortunately, my travel schedule ended where I came back the day before my daughter went to her brand new school summer camp. And this was
Mm.
intense. Like, you needed a degree to read this list of things they needed. It
Right.
was like, so I knew this was going to take some time from us. We're going to have to go to the store. She had to have a SIM card for her phone. She's never really used a phone.
Oh my gosh.
So before I traveled, I sent my husband this list. I'm like, you're going to have to get this while I'm gone. You have to please sort it out. I reminded him again while I was gone. I came home. I was severely jet lagged. I was super ill. I had the worst case of the flu. Um, and I got home, and to me, nothing was ready. I was like, and I
Mm.
just lost it. I was like, but this is the only thing I asked you. You were supposed to read the list and get everything that she needs. And then after I calmed down, I was like, okay, so he did get everything on the list. But in my mind, getting everything on the list means it's packed on the bed, it's ready to go, it's in the suitcase. I'm not like walking around the house looking for everything and where they put it. Like, it's all together in one little neat pile. And I had the worst regret about that moment. I apologized so much because, I just recognized that it wasn't done the way I would have done it.
Right.
Mhm.
But like the bulk of the work that I was stressing about was done. Everything
Mhm.
was there. It was in a million different places, but
But he
it
did,
it
what
was,
you asked him to
yes,
do.
it
Yeah.
was sourced. So
You didn't add put in the bag to the list. And not that you should have to.
Yeah.
correct.
But like you could be like, oh, you did it differently than I did. Can you get it all in the bag? I feel like crap. I'm going to sleep.
I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a
correct.
very clear request, but you're also not martyring yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so I think that women mostly act on these four things. I have a little acronym: PFOG, having to prove, fear, obligation, or guilt.
Mm.
Ooh, okay. Can
And that like drives our motivation, right? And
Mhm.
so our shoulds often are driven by that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so we have to look. And so other people, when we do delegate,
Mhm.
it sometimes doesn't look like us. So that was a great experiment, right? And what
Yeah.
Mhm.
you learned is, oh, your husband isn't like, he doesn't see the final, he doesn't
Yeah.
follow it through in his head to the final thing.
Mhm.
That's cool. You just need to be more explicit in your
Mhm.
directions,
Mhm.
and that's okay, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so when you think about experimenting, first of all, there's way more self compassion baked in. Nothing
Mhm.
is a
Mm.
fail. There's no mistakes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then you could try it and you can assess it and make adjustments. And then you're always in creation mode, which is fun.
Mm.
Yeah. So we're really living in a society where I think burnout is kind of at an all-time high for all of us in the professional world, but yeah, especially for women as well. Stress, chronic stress is at an all-time high. So, what is your kind of unique remedy for transforming your should life? Say, for example, we have a listener now and they want to take something away from this conversation that they can, you know, apply right now. That's not this huge ask for them. What is that unique small step we can all take?
Yeah, I think one of the greatest things that you can do is you can write out the rules of your world.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
cool.
Tell me more.
Yeah, right. So like in my world, my kids have a really beautifully packed lunch in this beautiful container, and there's I don't buy like the pre-cut vegetables because they're not as healthy, so everything is fresh, everything is organic. I use like all these certain like food items and it's in this thing, and everything is clean every day, and I put it in the
Hmm.
thing, and my kid goes to school and they always are happy and on time, and we have plenty of time, and there's no arguing in the morning. Right, there's no arguing, and I should always stay calm, and I should just love all of it, and then I should be the first one at work, right?
Mm.
And I should stay the latest. And I should get appreciation for every single thing I do. And so when you start, I should wake up at 6. I had a client who was like, I'm trying really hard to get up at 5:30 a.m. and do yoga by Adrienne. And I'm like, why?
She's there all the time.
She's like, well, she goes, I read that if you, the 5 a.m. club, and if you wake up in the 5 o'clock hour, you're more productive. And I read that yoga is a really good way to do, and I was like, oh my God, do you like yoga? Is that like your natural rhythm to it? She was like, I hate it. I could never even do it. And I was like, well, every morning you wake up and you go, I suck, snooze, 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 snooze,
Mm.
snooze. And so write out the rules of your world and just be like, where did I learn it?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Uh, what do I believe will happen if I do it this way?
Mhm.
What is it costing me? Do I love it? Is there any other way I could do it?
Mm.
And then the end is like, am I willing to explore dismantling any part of this should life? Is
Mm.
there anything I'm willing to explore, to experiment with, to try a
Mhm.
different way?
Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of fun, to look
Yeah.
at it. And people are like, oh, this is my Bridgerton.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I'm like going back to the cups, but for a different reason. I'm realizing, well, actually, I have one simple question and then I want to kind of reflect on this. Do you think, and we haven't really mentioned this, that sometimes us making up for something that maybe we didn't receive earlier in our life, or like a comfort or a boundary or a safety that we didn't feel, that we're trying to work extra hard to make up for that? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm thinking about my big should that's coming up in my head during this episode. And my should, which I'll say what it is keeping me from actually enjoying something that I love. So I love my friendships and I love socializing and I love hosting. We've talked about it before on this because
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Jeanne and I are a little different as how we express our high sensitivity. And I'm a bit more of a sensation seeker, so I love hosting. But what I've realized is that I've started to become a little stressed or tense around when we have events coming up, even little ones, even like 5 people are coming over for pizza. And what I've
Mm-hmm.
realized is that I've shoulded myself into thinking that I always have to have sparkling water ready. Everything the toilet paper needs to be refilled. The space need because I'm a highly sensitive person and I know what people need in an environment. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm shooting myself so much that I'm not enjoying the thing I actually really enjoy as much. And
Mm-hmm.
from everything you're saying today is resonating so well for me that I'm like, you know what? Maybe I will purposely let the LaCroix run out. And maybe I'll make someone ask for toilet paper. It doesn't mean they're not going to still
Mm-hmm.
love me and want to spend time with me. I need to unshould the thing I love, which is being with people, essentially.
Mm.
Well, yeah. And so one of the things that I do when I help people with their soul map is like you might have on there like entertaining and
Mhm.
hosting and how you do it and your core motivation needs to come from here, from your essential self. What do you love
Mm.
about it? Is the
Yeah.
connection, is the
Right.
creativity, is the fun, is the whatever it is, right? And so how you do it, that is an expression of your soul, really probably is doesn't have to be perfect.
Mm.
Now, if you love doing toilet paper floral things
No, I don't.
because you love having it look like below deck, whatever, then you'd be like, oh, it's so creative, right? um but I did this exercise in soul mapping around entertaining, and it was really funny because I love to cook. And when I was really looking at like the times when I ranked it like high energy, engagement, and flow, and like 0, like I hate this, it's a should, was how I was cooking, right? And my core
Mm.
motivation. So if I'm just doing it and I'm hosting and
Mhm.
there's like a football game on in the other room and everyone's watching it and I can hear them go, "Ah!" And I mean they're like chopping vegetables and like, being like, right? That's a one. If I'm like doing it and
Ah,
everyone's gathered around and we're having a pizza night and I'm like, here's some dough. I
yeah.
empty the sauce in a thing and I'm like, come
Mm-hmm.
on, let's make it right, and everyone's chatting. We're having a really
Yeah.
good time. It's a 5.
It's like the gentle
Mm-hmm.
hit of the golf ball versus the
Mm-hmm.
driving force that injures you.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I'm like,
Mm.
I'm not entertaining. I mean, I had this big breakthrough. It was like a Super Bowl thing. And I was like, I love the Super Bowl. Why did I set it up so that everyone else is watching it and I'm cooking?
Yeah. No need to should
And
that.
no, right? Or people saying, can I bring anything? I used to say no.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, yeah, like literally you bring the LaCroix.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I love that.
And you know what? I'm out of toilet paper. Do you mind bringing some?
Soft.
Very soft. Exactly. Let me send you a picture.
Mhm.
Oh, Marnie, this has been such an incredible conversation. And I think it was so timely because we really needed to, I think, recharge our batteries and just many of these things, as we always say in I think the wellness space, are things that I think we know deep down, but it
Mhm.
only resonates with us when we hear it from another source or in a way that resonates with us. And it really did resonate for me today. I think with Amelia too.
Big time. Thank you for our
Yeah.
coaching session.
Oh
Yeah.
my God,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like here's the thing. Life is short and I want all of your listeners to just get off autopilot. Even if you make some of the same choices, choose it.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to do freaking anything, really. There's
Mhm.
never been a time in history as women where we could kind of do a lot.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
and so let's get rid of the programming of the people who raised us, the society we grew up in, and really be empowered
Mm.
and free
Yes.
and screw the shit life.
Love
Yeah.
it.
So, where can our guests find you? If they're interested in working with you or learning more about you, where can they go?
Yeah, so they can go to the Institute for Living Courageously.com.
Mm-hmm.
And we have uh, uh, a little mini course on there about how to get into flow and create more
Cool.
time abundance and more self compassion and compassion for others.
Wow.
Because I think when we're in the should life, we get very resentful
Mm-hmm.
at other people, and we're constantly beating ourselves up. So there's a little training on how to get out of overwhelm, and then there is some self compassion and some compassion for others, so you can sustain yourself while you're in the
Mm-hmm.
transition of unshooting your life.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to check it out.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Thank you so much, Marni. And I know our guests would have loved this episode, and we hope to welcome you back.
Oh my gosh, it was so
Yes.
fun. Thanks for
Thank you,
having me. These are a
Marnie.
blast. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.